Hey everybody, my name is Mark Matthews and I'm a professional mountain biker. I'm sure many of you know that already if you're following the channel, but I wanted to use this video as a piece to do some personal reflection, share my personal story, and hope to inspire a lot of you, especially younger riders, those who are up and coming, those who think they are too late to the game, and anyone who wants to chase their passion. I feel like my story could inspire you guys and help you understand what's possible. I've been thinking of a way to communicate this in a video, but rather than doing something overproduced and overdone, I figured why not just talk to camera and then upload it. That plane's a little loud, but we'll keep going here. Yeah, so I'm 36 years old now, and I didn't actually make a full-time living comfortably out of being a professional mountain bike rider until I was 30 years old when I signed with Moran Bikes, because the salary they were able to pay me put me at a level just high enough to make it comfortable to pay my bills every month and save a little bit. Before that, it was just a mix of different sponsorships and trying to scrape money together every month to make this work. And it took a lot of patience, because when you are like in your late 20s, you feel like you're not going anywhere in life. It's pretty demotivating, but I stayed laser focused and I continued to chase my passion no matter what. So I first got into mountain biking probably around 12 years old. There was quite a few people in my school doing it, and this is when the sport really caught my attention. I was playing a lot of ice hockey as a kid, and I remember just like being in a game on the ice and thinking about riding and how much more fun it was than what I was doing, and it's all I really wanted to do. It's so cool. And I remember being at a friend of my mom's who was a really passionate mountain biker himself. He had a workshop in his backyard, and he had all these different catalogs, mountain biking catalogs. And I remember seeing one that was a couple years old at the time, because I think this was 2001. It was the 1999 Kona Bikes catalog, and I remember seeing those old downhill bikes and how sick they were, and like the Stab Deluxe and the ones with the crazy flame paint job that just had this aggressive look to them. And I was like, whoa, that's what bikes can look like. That's badass. It kind of looks like a motorcycle. And I always thought dirt bikes were cool, but it wasn't something I was really ever going to do or commit to. But this looked more achievable, and it looked like a lot of fun, just having this epic looking pedal bike. And I had a BMX already. I had a dirt jump TJ11 BMX bike, and I thought that was fun. We had a little box jump in the yard. I started digging up dirt jumps, but after seeing those mountain bikes, I really wanted one. So with the help of my parents and saving up, I got a Kona Hahana mountain bike from the local bike shop, and it was just this like basic hardtail with a bit of front suspension, V-brakes, all that. So I got that bike, and then there was a bike club in school. After school, we would go ride really tech gnarly rock rolls and XC riding, and then I would ride dirt jumps on it and go to the skate park. And I just started riding everything on this bike, not even really using my BMX bike much anymore, even though it was a better bike for jumping at the time. And I just got hooked on the whole industry of mountain biking. Like the whole sport was so inclusive and so inviting, and it was pretty underground at the time still compared to now. Like now it's not a mainstream sport by any means, but it was like really unknown still at the time, and no one really understood it when you said you were a mountain biker. They didn't know what it meant. And part of that was pretty appealing to me. I kind of liked the underground part of it, because I never really felt like I fit in school with anything. I was a really shy kid, even though I was kind of friends with everyone. I was kind of like friends with everyone, but friends with no one at the same time, if that makes sense. I didn't really know where I fit. I didn't have confidence in anything I did. I didn't feel like anything I was doing was really good enough or worthy of anyone's attention. And I was very like socially anxious, I guess. And I kind of hid a little bit. I hid who I truly was to people. But mountain biking was a way for me to express my creativity and myself in another way. And I really loved it. It was really fun. I didn't want to stop doing it. And I was naturally pretty good at it. And people started to recognize that. And I really liked that. I liked being recognized for something I was good at when I wasn't comfortable at anything else. I wasn't comfortable in my own skin. I wasn't confident about anything else in my life, but I was pretty confident about this, and that's really what hooked me in. So the years go by and I get better at riding, and I'm really really loving the scene. I look up to a lot of the pro riders at the time, like Wade Simmons, Thomas Vanderham, all those local Canadian dudes who were like at least, well, I don't know about Thomas, he wasn't a lot older, but guys like Wade were well more than 10, 15 years older than me. And then Vancouver Island, where I lived, had a really good scene. Like, I dreamed of going to the North Shore and riding with these dudes, and I didn't really understand how it was a career because there wasn't social media, there wasn't YouTube then, there wasn't all this stuff. This was the early thousands. You basically had to be the best at your sport and make really epic videos to really have a job doing this. And who knew if it even paid well? Like, my parents didn't think that was something that would pay any amount of money. It just seemed like these were kids having fun on bikes and they're in videos. And maybe that's what it was to a certain degree, but there was definitely money there. And I honestly, until I was like pretty much in my 20s, I didn't even see this as a feasible career for myself. I just knew I loved it and it was something I always had to do. And at about 20 years old, I started just traveling around BC more and going up and down Vancouver Island. And that's when I met Jordy Lon. And he did this thing in his yard where he would do dirt jump camps. And he was very inviting. He let all the local kids come and ride the yard. And that's when that film, I think it was called the Rome or the Collective or Seasons, the one where they're riding the dirt jumps in the yard. And I remember seeing that movie, thinking it was rad, then going to his house and being like, wow, this is so cool, riding the jumps. I had kind of crossed paths with most of these guys already from events and different races when I was younger, but I thought it was really cool being there and riding. And I even remember one day like bumping into Brandon Semenuk when he was still really young, because he's a couple years younger than me. He might have been like 13 or 14, and he was like that level above us already, like doing dumped 360s, perfect tail whips, just looking so good on a bike, dialing in tricks that I was trying to figure out how to do still, just that one level above everyone else in his age group or even a few years older. And he wasn't working a job. He was getting paid by Nike and Trek. And I thought that was so sick. And I dreamed of like being in his position, but I couldn't really get there because he was kind of like a leg up on me. And I didn't imagine myself being able to do that. And I didn't find like the whole slope style dirt jump thing come natural to me, but it was the thing that I was very interested in more than any other kind of riding. I never really got into downhill racing or any form of racing. I just wanted to do tricks and jumps and ride rad stuff, and that was really fun, but I needed to figure out a way to make that happen full time for myself when I wasn't really confident about it or my ability, and I didn't have like the same sort of commitment and work ethic as some people. I knew I was a hard worker, but I didn't have the confidence. So I would see guys like Brandon and that sort of crew just go nonstop with the riding, but I wasn't really comfortable enough to tell friends and family that that's what I wanted to do. And I didn't really know how to approach that. And I would get in social settings and I ended up going to parties and events and just drinking too much and getting too drunk, and that would help me relax, but it was counterproductive to my goals as a rider. And then I had the opportunity to move in with Jordy Lon and my friend Eric Lornock at like age 20 or 21 for a couple of years in North Vancouver. They were looking for a roommate. I had upgraded some classes in school because I didn't do very well in high school at all. I barely graduated. And I had done a couple of years in college in sports management at that point in Victoria. And I really wanted to learn more about the scene in mountain biking. So I moved to North Vancouver as a roommate with Jordy Lon and with my friend Eric. And Jordy was riding full time. He was a top paid athlete at the time, sponsored by Rockstar and James Bikes, and had all these rad sponsors. He was living comfortably full time, making good money. And he was traveling a lot and not home a whole lot when we were home. And then Eric was an up and coming slopestyle rider. He was getting a salary from Cove Bikes as a mechanic for the shop and also as an athlete. So he could get time off anytime he wanted to go to events and still get paid, which was a really cool situation for him. And I was just like the kid with no sponsors at all, working landscaping jobs, and I would basically work paycheck to paycheck. We would have gatherings. I would drink too much at parties, be really nervous around people, and make my way to some events, try some tricks. I was always more passionate about looking good on a bike versus doing tricks, and I didn't really see where that fit. One thing I had always enjoyed though was making videos with my friends, like my friend Aaron LaRock and Scott Secco and those guys now who are established filmmakers in the industry. They were more up and coming kids at the time too, and we would film fun stuff together all the time, make edits, put them on Pink Bike. Some of them got a lot of views, and yeah, some of them got like hundreds of thousands of views, which was really cool. And that's when my friend Aaron made a video called What's Next, which was featuring up and coming riders in our community, and it was basically all my friends that I rode with regularly were all riders in that movie, and it was really cool. Like that was our moment to have some sort of level of like stardom, I guess, in the mountain bike world, because we watched all these full-length videos like the New World Disorders and the Cranks and those movies, and we were basically making our own version of that movie, and it was really awesome, and it was really exciting to be a part of it. But I remember not even like going to the premieres in Whistler because I was like too broke to travel to Whistler at the time, or I know there was a big premiere in Vegas at Interbike, and I never went to that either. So I didn't really like celebrate with everyone in a sense. Oh, I might have went to the one with, there was one at the Longhorn in Whistler, so I did go to that one. But I wasn't like fully into all the events. So we did that. I lived with Eric and Jordy, and then I kind of like didn't really do much content or anything for a long time, and I didn't really have it figured out. But I was getting a lot better at riding, and I decided to go back to school in Victoria for 2 years. I had my sports management diploma, and that could become a fitness and leadership bachelor's degree if I went to school for 2 more years in Victoria at Camosun College. So I went back to Victoria after living with my friends for a couple of years, and I honestly didn't learn a whole lot about the career of an athlete because the scene was so different then. Like, to be honest, like Jordy wasn't great at making content either. He was just a really good rider and free rider and awesome dude, and his personality and the way he was around people was really inspiring. But I didn't learn anything about what I'm doing now, is maybe how to foster relationships a little better, but that was kind of it. So I went back to Victoria, and I wanted to finish school and just put myself in a better financial position for my future, because I didn't know where I was going. I was like, I need a job in the bike industry one day, and maybe like a marketing or business job or something, or something like that. So I went back to school, and that was a really game-changing time for me. I didn't expect it to really pan out the way it did, but I made some of my best friends still in those final 2 years of school, just people who are really into the outdoor and sports industry. One of them, my good friend now, Pat Nolan, he runs Nolan Riding. He was a mountain biker. I have a couple other really good friends that live up in the Comox Valley now, and we ride together every once in a while, and we hang out a lot. And yeah, I made some really, really good close friendships, and I learned a lot in those couple of years. And in the summers, I was living in Whistler, and I was working at the Airdome in Whistler, just trying to be the best rider I possibly could. And that was the most ideal job. I remember getting the call from Brian Finestone, the bike park manager of Whistler Bike Park at the time, telling me I got the job after I applied. And I was so fired up because I knew that meant I could ride my bike every single day in the summer, make money. And yeah, it was more of like a management type position job because I was managing a facility, which we had learned about in my schooling. So that was great. It was actually really easy to do. I just had to like maintain the ramps, the foam pit, cash out the money every day, manage up to 20 riders at a time because that was the capacity of the Airdome, and then make sure the basic dirt jump bikes were maintained. But I didn't even have to really do basic mechanic work because I could bring the bikes back to the shop down in the village and they would work on them. So yeah, that was really great. And there was some days where there was like 4 to 8 hour long shifts, like full shifts, where no one would show up and I could just ride the whole time and practice tricks where I would otherwise be impatient and not want to try something more than 10 times in a row. I'd be forced to do it for a couple hours because I had nothing else to do, and it seemed like a great use of time. And that really forced me to become a better rider in terms of like the tricks I could do on jumps. That's when I first started dialing in 360 tail whips and truck drivers and some of those bigger combinations. I got really comfortable with 360 in my downhill bike off drops with the drop into the foam pit, and yeah, kind of gave me a leg up on my tricks and my bike control. In the first summer in Whistler, I applied for NSMB's Apprentice contest, which is basically it's like a contest with like 10 riders. They ride at a resort for the weekend. Kind of think like Pink Bike Academy, but at a smaller scale and for just a weekend. And NSMB.com, the website, would sponsor their riders with like specialized bikes, SRAM components. You basically get 2 complete bikes. You get kits, clothing, everything. And then they were also sponsored by Toyota. So you'd have like a Toyota Tacoma you could get access to for certain trips and everything. It was really cool. And it was like that level of support I really needed to get me into the sponsorship game. And I so really wanted to be there. So I applied for the 3rd time in like a 5-year span. So I think 2008 is the first year I applied to Apprentice, and I always made it far through. I made it to like the final 3 every time, where they'd interview the top 3 riders. I never won. And then 2012 I actually won. It was really cool. So how that worked was we went to Silver Star Resort. They watched everyone ride for a couple days. We had like fun challenges. They also did interviews to get to know your personality, and they just felt I was a really good fit for the brand and for the website. They saw some of the video projects I've been doing in the last year. They signed me, and that was honestly game-changing. My friend Mason, who's also on the team, is a photographer, and we did a lot of trips together, really epic, big mountain road trips, just such memorable times, and it was so fun. We were like living the dream, even though we were getting no money. We were just getting free bikes and getting some of our trips paid for, and it was so cool. My second summer in Whistler in 2013, I was back at the Airdome. That's my last year of school too, and I did more videos in the bike park. I did one with my friend Rupert, which got like 500,000 views on Pink Bike. It was just me riding Whistler Bike Park. I started getting more known in the sport, and some of the other local pro riders I became pretty close friends with over the years, and guys like Darren Bearcloth and Jordy Lon. I had the ability for them to vouch for me getting into Rebel Rampage. And getting into Rampage 10 years ago was a lot easier than it is now. They allowed more riders in. They had like a qualification round before the finals, and I think it was like 30 riders max maybe. So I was in that mix. I got invited, and then I got really nervous being there. I was just so overwhelmed seeing guys like Cam Zink and Andrea Lecondagui and all those guys who were just like crushing it at the time. Brendan Semenuk. They had it dialed in. They had a system down because they'd been there before. I was a rookie there. I'd never experienced anything like that before. I was so overwhelmed by how big and gnarly everything was. But I was a little fearless. I wanted to send it. I wanted to go big, and I wanted to stand out. So I knew Cam was probably going to backflip or 360 a massive drop, which he did. I think he did a giant 360 that year. And yeah, I knew I had to do something to stand out from those top dudes. And I took G. Atherton's old line from the year before, from the 2012 year, and I rebuilt it with my friend Mitch Chuby, who was also invited. We made this big natural canyon gap. We widened out the landing G had, straightened out the run-in, and then we were linking into Tyler McCall's line from the previous year, and it was going to be such a rowdy natural like canyon gap and transfers kind of mix of features. And then the very bottom was going to be a 360 drop, because I've been doing 360s on my downhill bike all summer in the Airdome, and I felt really comfortable about doing a 360 off like a 20-foot drop or something. It was going to be scary, but I thought it would work. So I got really excited, and in practice on that first really gnarly gap we built, I decided to guinea pig it. I saw a lot of riders walk by, not thinking it was really a smart call to ride something like that, but I just wanted to like prove myself, and I knew I could potentially podium if I could clean this whole line top to bottom and get that 360 at the end too. That's when everything went sideways, and I hit the gap a little too inside, clipped the wall on the edge of the gap, like the cliff wall, with my right pedal, went over the bar so fast that I don't know what happened. I honestly blacked out from fear. It was so scary. Now I know what it's like for someone who's like falling off a bridge or a building that knows they're gonna die. Like, you don't even have time to be scared because it's such an intense feeling. You think there's no way I'm gonna survive this. Fight or flight mode, you're blanking out, then you're on the ground. So I hit the ground. It was like hitting a semi-truck. It was so gnarly. And I'm like, okay, I can feel my toes. That's all I care about. And after reviewing the footage, I saw the original clip. I'm just so lucky I didn't land on my back and I landed on my hip. I thought my hip was dislocated or something. Turns out my femur, 1 inch below my hip joint, was broken into 5 places. So crazy. So that was hectic because NSMB's program was specialized in Toyota and SRAM. It was coming to an end anyways. I was injured. I was out of a job. School was done. It was October. So I had to move back in with my parents for a few months, and that was really hard because I was 26 years old and didn't really have any money. Just all the money I'd been making that summer I was spending to go ride and travel around BC. That was kind of a dark time for me. I had a girlfriend at the time, but we broke up shortly after that. It wasn't a very serious relationship, but for me at the time it was, and I was pretty bummed out, and everything just felt like it was wrong and off. And yeah, it was rough. So I just put all my energy into trying to heal, eating healthy, working out, kind of laser focused on that, and got into that zone and had a really strong recovery. Actually, it was great. And then I moved to Vancouver again for a year with my friend Jeff Gulovich, a pro rider, and I knew I had to be around another pro rider again just to get myself in the right mindset, get myself out of that funk. I ended up signing a contract with Nolly Bikes for $250 a month and a few bikes, and that was the most money a bike company had ever paid me before. Ryan Bearcloth, Darren's older brother, was the one who got me that deal, and Ryan was awesome because he really, really, truly cared about me, and he got me on board with the SR Sun Tour, who is still my longest running sponsor, and IXS Clothing. I want to say between those three sponsors, Nolly, IXS, and SR Sun Tour, I think I was maybe making $15,000 for the year. Maybe like 12,000. I don't know. It was very, very little. You couldn't make a full-time living off that, but it was enough for me to justify moving out of my parents' house after a few months and going to Vancouver, renting out a cheap room in a basement suite and getting a part-time job at a bike shop while trying to make a go at this. And my mindset had shifted. I had already been posting on Instagram every day and trying to build up my followers. I already had like 40,000 followers on there. Nolly Bikes had just sponsored me. We were doing some team trips. I was taking it really easy, just focusing on trail riding and epic adventures and the visuals of riding, sharing nice photos every day, whether it's a photo of my bike that I took or I had a photographer take a photo of me, watching my following grow on social media because Instagram was such a big thing 10 years ago. And I was just so hooked on that and shooting cool photos. I kind of stuck with that theme for a few years, and the monetary support grew a little bit over time. The sponsorships grew a little bit over time. My online following grew a little bit. And then these apps like Instagram started diversifying and making videos. So I would have short form videos on there. And then I finally committed to a YouTube channel and maybe post something a few times a year, but it never really took off. And then, yeah, things kind of went to the next level when I signed with Hydro Flask in 2017. I was still with Nolly Bikes, and I was maybe making like $30,000 a year at that point. I had moved back to Vancouver Island. I would do random odd part-time gigs, like labor jobs, things like that, but I was just making it work. I was like paying like $700 a month for rent for a tiny little basement suite in the Comox Valley and making it work. And yeah, then Hydro Flask just reached out to me out of nowhere because they thought I was killing it, and they offered me a contract for like $12,000, and I'd never seen a contract that big in my life. And at the time, Nolly Bikes hadn't paid me in like 6 months. I was battling with them. They were being shady and they weren't paying me, and I was really unhappy about that. And yeah, I made some bad decisions. I sent some emails I regretted to other athletes on the team. I wasn't being very professional. I was stressed out. I wasn't like a very professional athlete, I guess, yet at the time in terms of like the business side of things. I was just passionate about my content and how I was doing things. And yeah, then Hydro Flask reached out to me. That made a big difference. And then I was like, okay, with this little bit of extra money, I'm just going to start self-producing content as much as I can. I ended up going to Turkey because a bike park in Turkey offered to pay my flights to help them out with some trails. And then I did a film project at the same time. I self-produced a whole video for We Are One Wheels where they didn't have to pay for the photographer or videographer's flights or anything. So that was all covered. I did it all self-sustained, saved the brands thousands of dollars, made some really great content. Then all of a sudden my value for sponsors just skyrocketed because people could see what I was able to produce without them having to invest. This is when the wheels really started turning for me, and I got very business oriented. I was like, okay, I'm not going to worry about trying to create the most epic stuff out there. I'm just going to document my life, put it out there, take my favorite moments, put it on Instagram where the visuals are so important to me, and just keep doing that. I started consuming business podcasts and books like crazy. Things like Tim Ferriss, Gary Vee, all those kind of like business related personalities in the world. It's funny because some of them have actually reached out to me personally after I've messaged them in the past, and I've conversed back and forth with some of these people who are like huge names in the business world, and I've just learned so much from them, and it's helped me with my bike career. So that has been really interesting and really, really nice growth. But I remember when TikTok started becoming a thing in 2019, and I got on it right away because I saw a couple of European athletes were growing really fast. No one was on it. A lot of people still aren't on it 5 years later. Now I have almost 1 million followers on there, and that's because every single day I would do 1 or 2 videos. I would take my old Instagram videos, put them on there. I just started going hard on that. That's when I first started that year, was documenting my trail building videos. And around that time, or I guess it's a year earlier, but in 2018 is when I signed with Marin Bikes. It's also the year I was 30 years old. That's when I truly consider myself to become a professional rider. Between that and Hydro Flask and a few other brands, I was making over 60 grand US dollars. Living in Canada, that's quite good for someone with just disposable income. And I was really happy because the bikes were awesome. I was getting more money every month. And I finally had some stable income. And even though it wasn't a lot of money, I lived a very low-cost lifestyle. And I bought a new truck. I had payments on it, but it kind of made me accountable. I'm like, I'm going to buy this brand new truck. It's going to make it so I'm forced to stay motivated and keep making money. And I'm going to leave the rest of my life low overhead. I'm going to really focus on creating content, getting more of my stuff out there, growing my following on all channels. So if Instagram or YouTube or TikTok, if any of them disappear tomorrow, I still have the other one. That was my mindset. I was like, I need to build myself up into a media company, share my passion with the world, take these other role models I have in action sports and in the business world and become one of them. That's really what I wanted to do. And Marin gave me that opportunity to really lean into that because all of a sudden I wasn't working another full-time job or another part-time job, sorry. I was just riding and creating and paying my bills every month and not really saving much yet. I had to get better at that, but I was at that point. So where I'm at now is basically a supersized version of that, like a lot. I'm getting a lot more support financially from everyone. I'm getting more sponsors. I'm getting more revenue streams. YouTube's paying a little bit of money now. It's gotten into a really, really great career for me, and I cannot imagine a career path or any other career I could possibly do that would pay me as much money as I'm making now. And I feel like I've carved myself into a really stable niche where I'm not taking crazy risks. I'm not going back to Red Bull Rampage. I'm not trying to be the best athlete in the world. I'm not comparing myself to athletes like Brandon Semenuk. I'm just doing my own thing. I'm creating my own value for the world. I'm sharing my experience and I'm trying to inspire others. And yeah, when I first turned 30 years old and I couldn't believe, I'm like, wow, like when you're 20, 30 sounds really old, but I was like, wow, I'm doing it now and it's only going to get better because I look at my taxes from the previous years. I'm like, well, I'm making more money every year. I'm going to stick to this trend because that gave me like so much more confidence than anything. I'm not relying on anyone else to control my life. And I've never really wanted to be an employee. I've always wanted to be more of an employer or self-employed. So this is perfect for me. And I believe when you have a passion like this, you can just keep going so hard. Like right now it is a Saturday afternoon and I'm out here filming this instead of doing anything else. And last night I was up until almost midnight working on a video. I was gonna work on it earlier this morning to get it out for YouTube tomorrow, but instead I decided to film this. So yeah, if you have that fuel inside you just to keep going and you wanna really do what you're doing, then it's easy to work really hard. And that is my story. That is how I became a professional mountain biker at 30 years old. I feel like there's so much here that I missed that I could tell you about. That's basically what happened. And that's all really what happened. And moving forward, I think I'm going to try to I'm still feeling like whatever I'm doing is not good enough. I need more of an income source that is passive, where it's a money system that works for me and I'm not constantly making videos nonstop. in order to pay the bills? I don't really know, but all I really know is that I really love what I'm doing. And if you're a younger rider or person watching this who wants to follow their passion, they want to follow this sport, I just want to leave it at, just do your own thing. Don't compare yourself to other riders. Mountain biking is a very diverse sport. We have cross-country racing, we have downhill racing, enduro, you have free ride, or you can simply just be a content athlete, someone who's documenting what they're doing, not trying to create something crazy or overproduced. Just document your life. People are going to find it interesting. If you like it, someone else will like it. So get out there and do that. And if you're not comfortable on camera, it'll come more naturally over time if you really like the idea of having videos of yourself out there. And making videos is just one thing. Like, you could write books, you could be doing vlogs, you could be a photographer. There's so many different creative outlets you could take. You could do artwork that is related to your industry and market it to that industry. There is so much you could do. And I wake up every day feeling inspired of the endless possibilities that I've created for myself with this choice of a career. So I hope that helps you guys. I hope that gives you some cool background on myself and inspires you to get out there and do the same. I'm gonna go do a lap now on the e-bike. I just got this thing dialed in yesterday. I haven't rode it in a while, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. So yeah, that's it for the video. Thank you guys, and I'll see you in another one later this week. All right, see you later.